What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Danny's to Talk. I'm your host, Robert, and today it's all about some manga. So, Kodansha recently did a special edition US release of their Young magazine. And the cool thing about this edition is that it included 16 brand new one shots that the fans will get to vote on, and the top five series that win will then get a shot to go on to be fully serialized into a full series. So I think this is something super cool. It would be neat if like other companies did something like this, or more frequently now. I know like Viz has been doing like their one shot program and stuff like that, and Manga Plus, all of them, they've been doing kind of like a lot of one shots and different things as well to kind of get uh, more opportunities for more series and stuff to get bigger attention. So anywho, so yeah, so this one came out like I said recently, and it was honestly a very fun exercise to read through pretty much 16 one shots over the course of this past weekend, plus a few extra goodies because there were some brand new one shots uh from some well-known authors and stuff that I'll get into in a moment. So I thought that this would be fun for me to kind of do this episode, kind of just going through these different series and just highlighting the ones I enjoyed and even the ones I didn't really enjoy, still kind of just still give them some shine and kind of like clarify like, okay, why I did or didn't like a series. So yeah, let's go ahead and just dive in. So those that are watching the video version, because this might just be a YouTube only episode, but very sleekly designed website where you have all of the manga to pick on, to read, to vote, all that stuff. And so at the bottom, there was a few special one shots that I didn't know until like the very last minute because I was originally going to record this the other day and then happened to scroll all the way down and I was like, oh, there's more to read. So one of them that I really enjoyed, so this first one, Me and Bob Dylan and My Father, this is by Shuzo Oshimi, who did Blood on the Tracks, which is very relevant for this one shot. But basically, this is Oshimi. Pretty much, it is more than just a one shot. It is a essay about him and his father's shared love for Bob Dylan. Now, myself, I've never really known much about Bob Dylan until like a year ago when I watched that movie with Timothy Chalamet, which was really good. But anywho, so I've kind of been trying to learn a little bit more over this last year, or whatever. But in this, like I said, it is just a essay of just him growing up and his father, him gaining a love of Bob Dylan from his father's love of him, and them going to his concerts and stuff whenever he would come to Japan and stuff, them going to his concerts together over the years, and how the experience of seeing Bob Dylan, whatever, was kind of like throughout a few times in his life was kind of like a crucial point on his journey to becoming a manga artist because going back to Blood on the Tracks, now this was educational for me, was that I did not know that the name Blood on the Tracks is the name of a song, the name of a Bob Dylan song, and that is how Shuzo came up with the name for this manga, was from a Bob Dylan song. But yeah, so that this was a very heartwarming tale. The next one, The Silent Forest. This is by Masaaki Nakayama, who did. I've never really read a lot of their stuff, but I'm aware of a series that came out recently, or maybe like a remake that they did called PTSD Radio. So horror stuff. So in The Silent Forest, this one pretty much is a horror manga set back in the Edo period that follows these a group of young boys that pretty much messing around with some stuff they had no business messing around with. So there was like a urban myth, so to speak, of this woman and her lover and all this stuff, whatever, and she ends up basically committing some crimes and stuff, whatever, ends up getting burned at the stake, and then her uh, spirit was sealed away, or whatever. And so, long story short, some kids go mess with the shrine, unleash the spirit, and pay dearly for it. But it was a pretty chill little horror one shot, but yeah, some pretty cool stuff. And this other one, Subaru and Subaru. So I started reading this one. So this is by Shuichi Shingeno. Now I started reading it, but then I realized that this is a one shot from the author that did, I think, both MF Ghost and Initial D, because as they're talking or whatever, they're saying certain characters' names, and I'm like, So I went to the MF Ghost page, and sure enough, they're referencing the main character of that series. So I was like, you know what? I was liking where it was going, but I was like, I don't know if I want to read this now, and if it might spoil some stuff from those other series. Because even though I'm not like a super big car racer type of story person or whatever, but I was like, you know what? That might be something that I might want to circle back to at some point. So, but yeah, just wanted to shout out those series first before I got into the 16. Now, before I start going through these, whatever, one thing I will point out, so Boys Run the Riot in Transition by Gaku. That's the only one of the 16 I did not read, simply because that is a one shot setting up a sequel to Boys Run the Riot, which I have not read yet. I've heard fantastic things about that series, but I haven't read it yet. And so I was like, yeah, ain't no point in me reading pretty much a sequel to something I haven't experienced yet. So just wanted to give that one clarification. All right, so I'm gonna kind of start going through some of these. Now I'll probably pause and stuff because some of these I gotta make sure the image is gonna pull up for some of these. But essentially, how I'm going to do this is that I am going to go down the list, because I made a list of these in order from my favorite to least favorite. So let's go ahead and dive into these. Okay, so first up, my favorite one of the bunch was Fasciation by Ouga. Now, this is one, as you can see, like, now I'm not showing the very first page because that has some stuff on it or whatever that I was like, yeah, I don't need to show that. But between that first page and these other, basically the first three pages, whatever, immediately grabbed me, had me like, hey, what is this? What is going on? So, an unexplored dark fantasy in which a despised witch and a girl journey through the world. Now, the way I described this was that this gave me full night vibes, along with kind of like a similar art style to me of the Isekai Doctor, which is a fantastic series. But basically, the premise of this series is that I believe. Oh, let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, so essentially, after war after war after war, it pretty much messed up the planet. But eventually, nature started taking over, and it was growing at a rapid pace. And so everybody thought that that was good, but it grew so much to where basically it kind of became kind of like a virus in a sense, to where the forest and stuff started taking over animals and even people and stuff. And eventually, if it overtakes your body, you die or whatever. So humanity moved way out, far away from the forest or whatever, to basically try to build up new civilization or whatever. Well, I can't remember what the origin of the original witch, but basically these witches or whatever have the plants partially in their body. There's like a process that they go to that gets this plant inside their body, and so they would basically cut off a limb. The people in the village would take that limb, plant it into the soil, and that would then help grow their crops and stuff. And the person, the witch's arm, or wherever the limb came from, would regrow. But of course, this witch is outcast, lives out in the forest or whatever. And so whenever the people from the village, okay, stocks are getting low, they go back to the witch, get the arm cut off again, planted, so on and so forth. And this cycle continues until pretty much the witch passes, and then they find somebody else to carry on that legacy, or whatever. And it's a pretty brutal situation because they showed how the current witch ended up being forced to take on this role. Because I believe it's like some type of like stone thing or something, whatever, that they implant on the tongue that forces the forest and stuff to overtake the body or whatever. So yeah, this was, like I said, by far my favorite, just because just like the setting and the premise and everything for it, just like immediately just like really caught my attention. And I just really want to see more of this series, more of this world. And yeah, so that is Fasciation, which I also learned is a actual planting term or whatever for forest stuff. So next up is Protocol Ryugu by Daisuke Tsuru. So this one is pretty much a snowball Earth situation, but even further into the future, where like 90% of the planet is like ice and water and stuff, whatever. And so there ended up being this fight between humanity where there were some groups of people that settled in places like Hawaii and stuff. And then there was another group of people that pretty much got forced into the ocean, and pretty much through generations or whatever, pretty much turned into like mer people and stuff. So you kind of have this war between the above sea and below sea nations and stuff. And so like this one, it was just like really cool. Like I said, like the recent manga that came out a couple years ago, this called Snowball Earth, that deals with like Earth getting turned into like a ice age due to these space kaiju and stuff, whatever. Like I said, this is like that, but like times infinity, whatever. Cause like I said, it is like that way, way, way beyond that initial situation or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I just love the setup and just like this conflict between these different evolutions of humanity and stuff. But yeah, so this was a pretty cool one that that I also enjoyed. Now I'm trying to think. Yeah, okay. So next up was this one called Godmother. Now this one is and this one is by Rin Shimokawa, and this is basically a Chinese horror series. So it pretty much follows this young lady who just living her best life, just chilling. She's about to finish up college or whatever, and then one day her dad just comes in and is like, "Hey," and she's stressing about her final graduation project and yada yada yada. And pretty much her dad comes in and is just like, "Yeah, don't worry about that. Matter of fact, don't worry about school at all. You're about to move to China to go live with your grandmother or whatever." And she's like, "Wait, what? Who?" And stuff, whatever. So she gets sent off, and he's like, "Yep, I've already called the school, canceled your stuff, yada yada yada, and you're leaving tomorrow to go to China." So this girl who does not know who this grandmother is or nothing, or whatever, gets sent there, whatever, and the art of it just looks so freaking dope. And pretty much the grandmother has this kind of like this presence about her where pretty much it seems like she is kind of like keeping all these spirits and stuff at bay, because obviously the granddaughter starts seeing some weird stuff in her at the grandma's house, tries to run away or whatever, and she ends up tearing off this like protective charm her grandmother had put on her or whatever, and all these various creatures and uh, weirdly shaped beings start approaching her or whatever, but then the grandmother's like, "Hey, that's my granddaughter, y'all chill, yada yada yada." But it seems like it's kind of like setting up where the grandmother is trying to train her to take her place because she feels like she is near the end of her life, and so she needs somebody else, I guess, to take over this position or whatever that she is in. But uh, but yeah, so Godmother, really, 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 really good stuff. Um, let's see. Next up was, oh yeah, Is My Love Strange? So, and this one is by Hikari Azuma. So this one is kind of like a, I don't know if I would say maybe like a coming of age, slice of life, maybe romance, question mark, series that, first of all, it has a very unique, very cutesy art style though, that when I was first reading it, I was like, I don't know. Because, so basically, it follows this young girl who basically she doesn't have traditional, like she doesn't feel herself falling in love with like normal people, whatever. But she's always had a fascination with like her teddy bear and stuffed animals and stuff, whatever. Which at first I was like, what's going on? But later on, mild spoilers, but later on at school, they have a new student that shows up, whatever, that wears a full size teddy bear costume, whatever, because that is what makes that person feel comfortable and feel themselves. And so, her seeing this person dressed like this, whatever, she gets that excitement, that fluttering heart feeling, whatever. And so it's kind of just like a story of just of acceptance and of embracing who you are and who you want to be and things you love and enjoy and stuff, whatever. So yeah, so like I said, it was just like a very nice and sweet story. So yeah, let's see what was next on my list. Let's check out. Okay, yeah. So this one was the journey of a dark elf with fading powers by Daisuke Itabashi. Now, as soon as I saw the art style, I knew who this author was. There is a manga I read a while back. I need to go back and finish it, or whatever, but I read, and I maybe talked about it on the podcast at some point in time, whatever, called Far East Chimera. Because similar character designs, there's actually well, this person is an adult, but like a full scale height and size character that has similar features, whatever, to this one, or whatever. But basically, it follows this this elf who was all powerful, has been all powerful for a long time, and something happened to where she lost, seemingly lost all of her magic. So she has just been traveling the land, exploring, and just learning to just appreciate other things in life, learning how to cook, adventure, hunt, different things that you cannot do, uh, or that can't be done easily without magic and stuff. So, but yeah, so straight simple, but But yeah, but like I said, the art of this looked really good, and like I said, just knowing that it is the same author that did Far East Chimera, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm down for it. Let's see. Next up on my list was To Dusk and Twilight. Now this one, oh, let me see. This is by an author named ROBICO, who did My Little Monster, which that is a manga I've seen around for years and years and years or whatever. Did not know until I was doing some research after reading this, whatever. That it also has an anime, so might check that out or whatever. But yeah, so I describe this as like reverse Call of the Night, where you have this older guy who you later find out he is a hitman, I believe, who seemingly is trying to take himself out. And the vampire chick, she ends up uh, stopping him or whatever, and pretty much is like, "Hey, I've captured you because you look like you're about to take yourself out anyway. So I need to eat." And so shenanigans ensue from there. But it's not like super funny. It's not super like goofy or whatever. But there are just like some funny moments between the two characters and stuff. And I like the art of it and the style. Like I said, it pretty much kind of reminds me a little bit of the relationship between the two characters in Call of the Night. Only difference though is that the vampire, she's the high school looking one, and then the guy is a adult man and stuff. So, but yeah. So To Dusk and Twilight, like I said, that is one that was a uh pretty cool read. Let's see. Ooh, a fun one was The Graveyard Shift by Yoshimi Sato. So this one is kind of like a horror comedy where you have this guy who was a samurai eons ago, whatever. He ends up reawakening as a vengeful spirit. And so he's like, yes, time for my first meal in a millennia. Where are the humans? But of course, he wakes up in freaking modern day Japan. So he's seeing all these skyscrapers. And he is just obviously flabbergasted. So he's roaming around. He's like, man, like basically what you would expect. Like it is night, but it is lit up like it's daytime, whatever. So he's roaming this construction site or whatever. Uh, Gets chased by some or a bunch of kind of like little guard droids. Uh, Approach him or whatever, and try to scan him and stuff. And it's like, okay, no no heat signature, no registered ID, yada yada yada. So anywho, fast forward a little bit, and a android guard comes along, but he doesn't know this at the time. Like it looks like just like a normal uh uh cute looking woman or whatever. So he's like, ooh, finally a human or whatever, and it's a woman. I love them or whatever. And then he goes to try to kill her and find out that she's just an android or a robot or whatever. And he's like, what is that? What's a robot? And so it's just this funny back and forth throughout this of him and her discussing, you know, what is a soul, and does the robot lady have it, and her tragic backstory of her being a soldier android back in the day, and then once the war was over, they just used them for like patrols and menial tasks and stuff like that or whatever. But yeah, so I I pretty much just kind of like described it. I'm like, it's Brooke from One Piece, and I guess maybe like a more friendly Android 18 buddy cop adventure and stuff. So, but yeah. So I got a couple of good little chuckles and stuff out of that one. All right. So moving on. Let's see. Okay, The Last Terran. Okay, the next one was The Last Terran. The story is by Hiroshi Takashige, who does Spriggan, and then I guess the art is done by Tatsumi Hitomoji. And so this one is pretty much kind of like a sci-fi mech drama, I guess you can kind of say, where if I remember in this one, I'm trying to remember. I think something happened to the Earth. Sorry, it's been a couple of days since I read this one, but something happened to the Earth, and humanity mostly has been dispersed out to like Mars and the Moon and stuff like that or whatever. And so there ends up being like this like super dope, uh, not a Gundam, but like a ship, combat ship thing, whatever, robot ship. And long story short, it ends up being piloted by a actual person who is still from Earth or whatever, but I guess they had been kind of like in stasis for a long time, whatever and stuff. So, but the thing that I kind of liked about this, like for one, I liked just like the darker kind of gritty nature of it, but it also seemed like it had kind of like a like detective mystery thing going on too, with one of the characters and stuff in it and stuff. So, but yeah, so because the title says what the world and beyond. So, oh yeah, never mind. But yeah, so that's that one. Uh, Project Metallia. This one, who is this one by? The author is called. No, sorry. Trying to see if I can find. Okay, Yukito Iwai. So this is also a sci-fi type of series where this world-renowned young scientist goes missing, and there's like an explosion in like one of the factories, and so there's this team sent in to investigate the situation and stuff. And so along the way, they end up encountering these robotic, like it was like a robotic dog, some robotic mice and stuff, whatever, and they were made out of basically these like living metal alloyed stuff, whatever. So I don't know, it kind of tough to describe, but pretty cool little concept. Like I said, just like with the living metal part of it, and I don't know, just kind of me just curious to know, like, okay, what more happened here? What more is going on? But nothing too much on this that like really caught my attention. Beyond this, because I think each of the people in this squad also had like special abilities and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, so that is that one. Okay, this is one. It's not typically a type of series that I read, but it was still a kind of like a sweet and wholesome one. Okay, this one is called Still You by Kami Nishio. Now, this one is a boys' love series, but it pretty much just follows these two guys who were childhood best friends, uh, tried experimenting with some stuff, kissing pretty much, and that kind of made things pretty awkward between them. The dad walked in on the situation, and the boy, the one that lived in the house, whatever, got punished very badly by his father, and that whole awkward situation kind of fractured their friendship for many many years. And so now years later, they're in high school and stuff, and so they're kind of basically kind of like trying to reconnect and also kind of like re-explore their feelings and their friendship and stuff like that. Because now it's like, hey, we're older, we're not little bitty kids anymore. What does this mean for us, whatever and stuff. So, but yeah, like I said, not typically the genre that I read, but this was still a pretty wholesome story. All right, let's go down the list. Okay. Where is it at? Where are you at? This one. Dope art. Ridiculously dope art. This one is called Goma, the Blade That Slaughters Gods by Hiroki Ishizawa. Now, this one, like I said, art off the charts. Way off the charts on this series. Like the character designs got some variety of characters, different skin tones and stuff. All look very cool, very dope. And yeah, it's pretty much just like a action series where these people are going around taking down these different gods and stuff. Now, for me personally, which is why it's way down this list, whatever, it just really didn't do anything too much for me or whatever. Like I said, like the fights and the action looked pretty dope, looked pretty cool and stuff, whatever. And like I said, the art is freaking off the charts. Probably like the most detailed uh art out of pretty much everything in this, arguably. But yeah, but it just didn't really do much for me. This might be one maybe if I like read through it again, might hit a little bit different, but just in general, didn't do too much for me. But shout out to the artist though. Like this is freaking ridiculous. How good that looks. Alrighty. Okay, this one. Uh Kiki Kai Kai. This one is by Kyuri Yamada. And the simplest way I can describe this is that this is kind of like the typical shonen style series. Cause like even from like just like the art style and the way it looked, it kind of has that vibe. And then when I was reading it, I was like, it's nothing like horrible about it or whatever, but it was just kind of like typical stuff that I've seen before. Some of for some reasons, like some of the like one of the characters kind of reminds me of a character from Kimono Jinshin, that manga anime series. But yeah, it pretty much just deals with these people uh, that are part yokai or yokai. I can't remember what the relationship is or whatever, but they have different abilities because they are yokai and they're fighting stuff. So, like I said, nothing too crazy about it to me, but you know, I described it as this would be something that my middle son, my 12, 13-year old son, would probably have fun uh, checking out and stuff. So, all right. So, going on from there, ah, the Night of Blasphemy. Another one. Really good looking art and stuff. Kind of gives me a Magi feel now that I'm like really looking at it again. But yeah, Night of Blasphemy by Ray Kendo. So this is a historical fantasy series uh that pretty much kind of deals with these two groups of people that worship different gods and stuff. And so it's just kind of like a religious warring battle and this one guy wanting to kind of like break that chain or that cycle or whatever and stuff. So, but I don't know. Like I said, this one didn't really do too much for me. Like I said, the art of it looked pretty dope though. But aside from that, not too sure. Now, last thing I want to add though, because now I kind of skimmed through it again. This one, maybe I could have maybe bumped it up a little bit higher. And this is one that I think with time, selling into this world and these characters, this might go somewhere. Cause like I said, like once I kind of scrolled through it again, I was like, you know what, I probably should have put this a little bit back higher up. But yeah, so that's the Night of Blasphemy. Okay, this next one I'm gonna touch on super briefly, but it is a horror manga called Pregnant. By the story is by Denchi Matsumoto and the art is by Keita Nishijima. I ain't really feel this because now I've told you before I don't really do horror in general, but this one just wasn't really my vibe. So pretty much the situation with this is that it deals with pregnant people where I guess the fetus or whatever is like, or the pregnant person's body, I guess, is possessed by like some demon thing or something, or whatever. And it kind of coerces people into committing different crimes and murders and stuff of like, hey, if you don't uh, hurt three people or whatever, then your wife's body, I'm gonna take over it or whatever, or I'm gonna kill her and yada 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 and stuff, whatever. So it was very weird or whatever. So didn't really feel it. So yeah, that's all I really got to say on that one. And then let's see. Okay, yeah. So one more after this. All right. Into the Dark by Henri Morikuma, which I probably could have put this above that pregnant one. Now that I think about it, but this is another kind of like horror one that pretty much deals with these two group of kids who they are literally just one day just like walking home from school and end up in front of this like demonic gate thing. That kind of reminds me of anybody that's reading. It's another new series out there called it's like Ashura's Revenge or something like that. Ashura. I think it's Ashura. I can't remember. It's called Ashura something. Ashura's Verdict. That's what it is. But yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, it was just these two kids walking home. This like demon gate thing opened up, whatever, snatched them in there, and they were getting tortured and all type of weird stuff, whatever. And so, yeah, I was like, no, thank you, no, thank you on this one and stuff. So, but yeah. So I think that is all of them. Let's see, Fasciation, Protocol. Yeah, I went over all of them. So yeah, so that is the list. So like I said, my favorites were Fasciation, Protocol, Ryugu, Is My Love Strange was solid. Uh, the Journey of a Dark Elf, Godmother, uh, Last Terran has some promise. Graveyard Shift was kind of funny. Like I said, this Night of Blasphemy. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, maybe I was too harsh on my listing of you. But oh yeah, and to Dusk and Twilight. So I'm gonna refresh this page, and we're gonna kind of see. So they kind of have like a live update. So this is the current ranking right now. So that's still you. No surprise on that one, I would say, because I know like the BL community will show up for the mangas. So that's number one. Number two, because this was lower. This is like number 4 this morning. So number 2 is Journey of a Dark Elf. Number 3, Godmother. Number 4, Last Tehran. And number 5, Night of Blasphemy. So, but yeah, so they have it. Like I said, you can read the stuff and then you can go through and you can vote once a day on your favorite series. And so the voting is going to go on, I think, for at least like a few weeks. Yeah, so it's gonna go on for a few weeks and stuff. So, but yeah, so this was, like I said, a very very cool little thing that they did. Like I said, it'd be cool if they did more of this. And like I said, like I said, still want to just shout out like Viz and some other ones that are doing little programs and stuff like this. But this was neat, just doing like a whole competition and events around it and stuff. So I do kind of want to, even though it might be too late now, but oh yeah, it was just this past weekend. But I probably it probably would have been cool to have gone to if you were either at Anime NYC or gone to a Kino Kuniya store and gotten one of these magazines or whatever and stuff. So, but it would be neat if this was maybe something that they did maybe like once a year, have like a new batch of 10 to 15 or whatever for fans to kind of like read through and vote on and stuff, whatever. So who knows? Maybe they will do that. But yeah. So that's it for my thoughts on the Young magazine and the 16 one shots, and like I said, and also those 3 one shots from the legendary authors and stuff. But yeah. So just wanted to do this, like I said, just a fun little exercise I wanted to try out and stuff. So, but if you enjoy this, check out my other stuff. Here at Danny's to Talk, it's all about fatherhood and family, manga, anime, TV shows, movies, and of course, sometimes some video games. So if you're down for any of that, stick around, subscribe, all that stuff. But with that, I am out. Y'all have an awesome day or week, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.